It's an interesting story. Long story short, my history teacher was a big influence on me in high school. It wasn't just about the subject; it was just something we were talking about earlier. Just he kind of helped me become the person that I am. He was my advisor, and he just looked out for me in ways that no other teacher really did. So when I got to college, it was a pretty simple choice for me. I didn't know it at the time that I wanted to be a history teacher, but I did. Something just pulled me to that, and I think it was my first class. Actually, it was about race and ethnicity, and I think that, on top of him being a really big influence on me, just kind of pulled me that way. So last year was my first year at Berks, and I had taken a year off, and so to be back in the classroom, working with kids, and getting them excited about history. So for me, really every day is an exciting day for me. I get excited about coming to work, and even now, I mean, still, I'm excited to see, what the kids are doing, what they're working on, how they're engaged. We're working on the election right now, so the kids are really engaged in those discussions. So every day for me is exciting. I think it's one of the things that I enjoy about teaching history is that I'm able to, we're very lucky to live in an area like the Bay Area, which is just so diverse. And so we talk about helping our students to become global citizens. And so I feel more so than any other subject that in history I'm able to have students look at themselves and learn about themselves, and then from there learn about each other, so that they can truly become global citizens, that they're just not, that they can look outside, outside the box and look outside their world and truly become global citizens. So it's a huge responsibility to do that, but I feel it's an important one, and again, especially because we're here in the Bay Area, I think exposing our students to various cultures, it's a plus. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, we have over 200 different languages here in the Bay Area, so because of that, I want to be able to expose my students to as much as I can. Last year, when I was working with the 8th grade, and we were doing, there were two experiences actually. One, we were looking at the institution of slavery, and I had this idea of having students come up with making a museum, a slavery museum. And I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out because I had never done it before. And so as I started to think about the project and being, looking at our student population, I wanted to be very careful because I didn't want this to be taken the wrong way, because I've seen it where I've been in schools, I've heard about experiences where they try to do projects and they just turn into a disaster. And so I wanted to make sure that I covered all my bases. And so I talked to the students about intent versus impact. I mean, it was really a teachable moment in a lot of ways. I had other people come in to talk about intent versus impact and, how we want this to present this museum and what we want the impact to be. And it was really, in the end product, the girls they put so much time and energy, and it was very thoughtful. And I don't think I've experienced that in any other school that I've been at, where students really, it wasn't just about creating something. It wasn't just about finishing the assignment. It was, they really were thoughtful. And they made sure that, that the impact, their intent and impact was something that was not going to be, shocking or, because they thought about who their audience was going to be. Yeah, I mean, I challenged myself. I challenged them because, again, slavery is such a touchy topic, and even though, especially being an African American, being so many generations removed, but yet being still so very tied to that, I wanted to make sure it was a challenge for me. It was a challenge for me because of that, be having kind of a personal attachment to it. But it was also a challenge for the students because, again, it was something new. I'd never done it before. And so we were really working together to try to figure out how this was going to look. And so it was a challenge all across the board. Really just, how do we want this to look? We've never done it before. I've never done it before. There were no examples I could show them because I don't know of any other place where it's been done. I can only kind of give them, it was a vision. And we kind of just worked through it. So it was really a challenge for all of us.
That's excellent.
Yeah. The challenges for me as a teacher, there's some things I struggle with. I could always be better organized. A lot of times, especially after doing an assignment or a project and reflecting on it and saying, how could I have made that better? How could I have made it better for the students, in their experience? There's definitely been some duds, and to put it lightly. And so I always, how can I make that experience better? What do I need to do the next time so that students really understand what I'm asking them to do? So for me, it's organization, clarity, being very clear of what my expectations are in a particular assignment. I think that's a challenge for me, or keeps me up at night.
Right.
And then having students get from thinking about the grade. What's my grade? What's my grade? How can I get an A? Going from that to actually having students really, truly love learning. I think that's something that keeps me up. How can I get these students to switch from, well, is that going to get me an A, to actually, love the process? Because I try to keep, tell my students all the time, it's not about the grade, the end result is not, it's the process. Right. What did you learn? You could get a C, but you still learned something. You might get an A, but what did you learn? So that kind of keeps me up at night. I think for me, project-based learning, putting in the students' hands. I've spent a lot less time being in front of the class. Say I have a 55-minute period, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of that will be me actually sitting in front of the class and actually engaging the students, because I want them to do the work. I want them to be able to get their roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty and have those difficult conversations among themselves. I always start the conversation or give them the framework, but it's really about them. I want them to do the work. So for me, and one of the challenges, going back to challenges, is I've made this year, and even last year with 8th grade, all project-based. And so for me, the challenge every year is about assessments. How do I assess these? How do I know that students are learning? How do I know when students are engaged? How do I know when they're learning? Because I don't give any tests. And so how do I know when they're learning? So that's been a challenge. But for me, that's pretty much how I run the class. It's all project-based. And the results have been amazing. Because I'm sure if you ask a student from last year, what do they remember? They'll remember the slavery project. Yeah. They'll remember the global warming PSAs. They'll remember when they wrote a constitution, because it wasn't about me being in the front of the classroom just talking, or giving exams, but it was really them, being engaged and working, problem solving.
Right.